Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, a place to discuss pain, passion, and pursuits.
Let's get it. I want to feel alive.
Breathe.
Make some moves.
Protect the throne. This is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast.
Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. It's your girl, Helen Edwards, and my guest today is Amy Schweim. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Helen. It's so awesome to be here. I'm so excited for our conversation today. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So I brought you on here because you reached out to me and I checked out your profile. I thought some really cool things stuck out at me, like a goddess, breathwork, coach, and then you're traveling. You do some, I don't want to butcher this stuff with a bike. Can you tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, you pretty much nailed it there. As far as, goddess yoga, I do somatic and conscious breath work. And then, the bike stuff is that's Women's Radical Pursuits, the company that I built about 7 years ago now. And I started out running women's retreats down in Mexico and South America, a little combination of mountain biking, yoga, cultural connections. And then, since all the things that have happened in the last 7 years, there's been a lot of different things that have bloomed from it. One being a little bike project we started getting for the local kids and communities down in Oaxaca. So it's just been a really fun journey and continuously helps me step into, my true power, my authentic expression, and really just what I'm passionate about. So it's been a really fun journey.
Totally. One of the things I definitely can feel from your energy is, when you light up when you talk about your passion. And on this platform, Sexy Freedom, it's all about the freedom of flowing and diving into the things that make us want to live more passionately, abundant, and prosperous. So with your business, I want to say, right? What is it called again?
Yeah, it's called Women's Radical Pursuits.
Women's Radical Pursuits, which sounds really radical. What do you feel so radical about it?
Oh my God. Well, everything really, I love that you spoke to how it, the lighting up, because I feel like it really does light me up. And it's really cool in that I just feel like it's been this evolution that I had no idea really in the beginning. When I got into it, I was in a very different time of my life. Really different time of my life, different energy, I would say, more anchored into my masculine energy. And, I believe that that's obviously like it all, our lives flow like they need to, right? Everything is divine timing. But I feel like through this journey, it's really led me to radically transform my own life, and then also be able to do that or help others in the same way of just radical transformation, radical awakening, radical expression. And I think a big part of that for me was it was a couple years after I started the business, and when the pandemic came on, there was I had this huge dumpster fire where everything burned down, right? I call these dumpster fires. And honestly, I'm so thankful now, years later, or whatever that's been now. I feel like it's such a blur sometimes, but because what that really invited me to do was look deeper and really that was the time where it was like, all right, you created Women's Radical Pursuits. Well, it's time to get radical. And so, what happened for me is I actually pushed pause in my business because there was so much that fell apart in my life that it was a clear invitation that there was a lot of internal things that I needed to look at and be with. That's what led me to breathwork, honestly. And from there, it was just like this fast track to, oh my God, just an unearthing and awakening, like all these things. And one of those other pieces after getting into the breath work was getting into this amazing practice called Goddess Yoga, which I started when I first moved out here to Sedona a couple of years ago. And I feel like that, it was the breath work that really helped me unearth the things I needed to see. And then when I started getting into Goddess Yoga, which is essentially it's the art of sacred and sensual movement, it's a new type of sisterhood and connection and connection to self, to others, to women, to rituals. And through that practice, it's really helped me anchor into my feminine energy and really balance that masculine and feminine energy, but really bring to fruition this whole other part of women's radical pursuits that, like I said in the beginning, it was very masculine driven, I think, with the extreme sports and the travels, and just, it just felt really like hard and rigid and tough. And I feel like what's happened for me just in my life and in my business is this like softening and like opening and real juiciness and like feminine and flowy, circular, just a completely different energy. The last thing I'll say about that is, I think I kind of have this tendency to if you think about a pendulum, right? Maybe sometimes I can go far to one side, far to the other. And I think what I've even in the last 2 years of being out here and kind of stepping into these spaces of, somatic and sensual sacred movement has been really bringing that pendulum back to the middle and recognizing the importance of that masculine energy and that strong container. And then being able to hold that, that space where the feminine can come through and really express and, really just, let all those juices flow and however you want to say that. But it's been really fun in that way. So.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that kind of stuck out to me too was that you're in Sedona. And when people hear Sedona, especially if they've never been to Sedona, they're like, oh, whoa, it's become this like highlight of this vortex type place for all spiritual beings. And I'm from Arizona. I've been to Sedona plenty of times. And, it's one of my favorite places. But how did you end up there and what drew you to Sedona?
Yeah. Wow. I tell you what, never in a million years did I think I would end up out here. But I'm so glad I did. Because wow, I just, Arizona in general, I feel like is so rich in culture and, history and the land and so much diversity that it's really spoken to my heart in a deep way. Sedona in particular, what brought me here, how I got here was, well, if we go back to dumpster fire in 2020, one of those flares, I guess, in that fire was an ending of a relationship that I was really, that was really just like that, heart-wrenching, breaking place. And in that, it was like that really right place to start to see like all of my really big dumpster fires in my life have been when these breakups happen. So I was like, what do I need to see here? And I had actually done this type of conscious connected breathing years ago when I took my yoga teacher training down in Baja in Mexico. And I'd only done it once and then a couple times, a few workshops, but I remember it being really powerful and just really powerful. Like, what the hell happened? It was kind of one of those things after every time. And when this, what I'm speaking to in 2002, the dumpster fire, I mean, relationship was one thing, but there was like, death of a friend, there was job loss, there was business, crumbling with the pandemic and travel shut down. So there was just so many things that really shook me to my core. And I knew I wanted something that was going to go deep. And I just remember the moment I was like, okay, breath work. Now's the time. I'm going to really get into this stuff. And one of the guys that I had done breath work with in workshops in Colorado, where I was living at the time, Zach Rader, he lives in Sedona. So I reached out to him. And at the time, he was like, I don't do private stuff, but here's a friend, a colleague that does. And so he connected me to a woman named Gwen Payne, who is absolutely amazing. So I started working with her personally, and we did it all online, the breathwork sessions. And it was so powerful. It was so transformative for me and really helped me through that time of my life. another piece to this story is that I ended up getting really sick right after this dumpster fire happened. And, now 2 years later, or wherever we're at, I can see it. I'm like, oh my God, it was like severe dysregulation of my nervous system, and for years of living in that way, having this big, all these stresses kind of happen. It was like the catalyst for this to take place in my body. But what's really also powerful about what breathwork has done for me is just the nervous system regulation and the healing that's taken place in my body through that experience. So basically, after I worked with this woman, Gwen, she invited me into her facilitation training. And at the time I was like, okay, but I didn't really see myself, actually doing this. It was more like, okay, I can deepen this practice for myself. And then, so I took that training online, and then months later, I'd actually been living down in Oaxaca, Mexico, working remotely, and I was coming back to the States. And I was on my way to Colorado. I was going to go back to, one of the little towns I lived in, Salida, Colorado, do kind of the old thing that I used to, landscape and, waitress. I was like, I'll just kind of wing it for the summer. And I got there and I had like 3 days, and I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I feel like I'm going backwards. Like I'm kind of going back to this old part of myself and way of life that I just don't want to do anymore. And so I called Gwen because she had talked to me for months about a retreat company, and them needing breath workers. So I called her up and said, hey, is that company still hiring? And she said, yeah. And I just literally, I like packed up my truck and drove out here, never had been here or really experienced Sedona, but it was like a soul knowing of like, okay, it's time to step it up. So that's how I got here. And then I worked for Sedona Soul Adventures, a retreat center here, and was primarily doing breathwork sessions for clients, one-on-ones, and then some other sessions like Ignite Your Passions and Purpose. Also doing some integration coaching, and then I got into the goddess yoga and got trained, and I teach those classes now as well. But yeah, that's my story and how I got out here.
Wow, what's pretty interesting is that they say you're always one step away from a different or a totally different life. And from the sounds of it, you kind of had this awareness, and you foresaw your life, if you went back to Colorado, as doing the same things that you've already done and getting the same results. But then you decided, boom, feel the fear, do it anyways, just jump, go, radical action, radical, just like your business. And you just jump in and went for it. And I often find a lot of people that I talk to that have these immense changes in their life, what you said, soul calling, great words to use. They're paying attention, they're listening to that, and they're just jumping on and going. And it's a great decision, obviously, for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Truly, that's exactly, that's what I've been for years now, just like really working with, of listening, like, what is this wild heart want? It's like I've always kind of what do they say, like dance to the beat of a different drum. And for many years, like doubted myself and questioned and always felt like I was doing something wrong. And I think that's the beauty of now getting to, my mid 40s and kind of being like, fuck it. Like, what the hell am I doing here anyways? This is, we're all different. We're all unique. We all have our own soul expression to, bring forth in our life's journey. And I think that's the part of all this work, even that I've done personally and professionally now, of the somatics and getting in the body and listening and connecting to your internal GPS, your heart, your soul's knowing, those deeper places when we get out of that survival mind and the fight, flight, freeze, that a lot of us are unconsciously living in. And it's been really a fun journey. And it's been radical, in so many ways.
Why has it been important to you to specifically work with women?
Yeah, great question. I guess what really started leading me to focus on working with women, this was even back when I started, when I was really in that like masculine kind of energy. And when I speak to that, I guess for me, what that means and what that felt like was like, the doing and constant action, and if I'm honest, like feeling like I had to prove something, and now I understand where that came from, kind of like, from earlier experiences, and I can have a lot of love and compassion for myself. But, it was really that driving energy of just like always going, always pushing, always striving, always, figuring it out. And I think what happened was so before I started Women's Radical Pursuits, I was a teacher, and I ended up, I taught in public schools in Colorado for many years, different ski towns. I always lived in those places, and I loved it so much. Um, you know, but I feel like it was just so complementary to like unconsciously that masculine energy, because it was like extreme. It's extreme living, it's extreme, like, all these sports that take you to those edges. And I guess maybe there's something in my soul, my essence, my nature that loves that, that because I feel so alive when I'm pushing myself in some way. But I think what started to happen for me was I recognized this unhealthy balance, right? Where, on a whole level of like, wait a minute, it's like yin yang. There's got to be that time for rest and that time for integration. And what happened is I had a dumpster fire years ago in 2012 around a relationship as well. And that one ended up sending me down to I went and taught in Colombia, South America for 2 years in an international school. And I think that was the first time for me that I really started to connect with my feminine, that just the culture on the Caribbean coast of Colombia, and it's like wearing dresses and like that, just like juicy, like ocean, humidity and dance and all the things. And it was like it sparked something inside of me so deep. It was like this reconnection to the feminine part of myself. And I remember I bought a mountain bike down there, and I started riding, and it was like all of a sudden I really felt like I reconnected even with my why around like, why do I ride my bike? Oh my God, I love being in nature. I love being on two wheels. I love moving my body, but I don't necessarily need to go so hard or prove that I can ride something. So everything softened there. And that's where I feel like the opening happened. And I started to see it from a lens, I guess, literally, thousands of miles away of where I'd been living and the women I'd been in community with, how we all have this like real, like, dominant masculine energy driving us. And so when I started Women's Radical Pursuits, my intention was like, okay, let's allow ourselves to soften up a little bit here, and like get women in different places in the world, connecting with themselves out of their comfort zones, back to like just the joy of biking, cutting the competition out of it, connecting with other cultures and art and dance and all the things. So, that was what really led me into that. But I feel like then it's really interesting, like how that's transformed. Because even, the beginning, I look at it and I'm like, wow, I was still driving from that place, my own masculine energy. But over the years now and everything I've gone through and opened up to, and especially with the work in Sedona, personally, professionally, it's just changed everything. And now I'm in women's circles, and I dance with a group of women in Scottsdale, sensual bachata, and I'm doing some performance dancing and, stepping into other places and spaces, even in this kind of feminine aspect, that are still pushing those limits. I guess, like I said, I guess for me, I know that it takes getting out of your comfort zone to really find those places of growth, or see what's still there that maybe needs to be attended or nurtured. Or so
Mm-hmm.
anyways, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just it continuously, yeah, it just continuously has been evolving and, radically changing in so many different ways.
Yeah, I like hearing what you're saying, especially the dance and the music. And, for me personally, I come from a background of like Latin and Native American and very culture background. And so dance was a big part of our home. And there's so much freedom in body movement. Um, so I'm hearing what you're saying, and I
Mm,
can tell you that I love meeting women who are kind of we're all extensions of each other in different parts of this world, or the earth mama, and I love it because, I just moved to Wyoming, and I held a goddess gathering here for the first time, and nobody, I mean, I went to a meeting and I said, I'm having a goddess gathering. It's free if any of you women would like to come. And everybody was like, what's a goddess gathering? You know, it was their first time hearing about it. And it
Mhm.
was so beautiful because I got to, express what it is. And then I got to lead it, and it was very powerful.
Yeah.
So I love that you're doing that, especially in my home city,
Yes.
Scottsdale, Sedona, I
Get
miss it
out.
so much.
Really?
Yes,
Amazing.
yes.
Wow.
But so one of the things I was going to ask you, let's bring it back to the masculine versus feminine energies and the off balance of that. What are some of the signs maybe that, there's listeners, they're listening and they're thinking to themselves, okay, how do I know if I'm unbalanced with this masculine versus feminine energy? What are some of the
Yeah.
signs you may have felt yourself?
Great question. Well, I guess I will speak to personal. What happened for me was, you know, recognizing that I didn't know how to quit. It's like it was that constant doing, constant action. So like whether that showed up in my work, right? And especially like having your own business, it's like you can work into the wee hours of the night, right? Especially like in those starting yeah, starting out, particularly. Also, exercise. I mean, that was a big thing for me. It was like, I feel like work and exercise were the big ones because I think ultimately what I found for myself was like there was a lot of unresolved um emotional, I'm just going to say emotional energy in my body. And so what I found was because I didn't know how to be with that, I didn't know what to do with it. I always tried to find a way to distract myself or maybe numb out from that, whether it was like having a drink or eating some food or going hard on my bike or working into the wee hours of the night, because then I didn't have to sit with it. I didn't have to be with it. So it was that constant like driving energy, right? Also, I would say like, when I think about just how I felt, oh my God, it was like constant anxiety. There was like anxiety and depression were such a thing, I feel like, of my life in the past where it was just this cycle. And I think what was happening also in that was being constantly, when you're constantly going, right? It's like you think about how the body works in physiology. It's like your cortisol is through the roof. So the body then it's like it's exhausting and it's unsustainable. So I know what happened for me in 2022 was I started having like all these symptoms in my body that, I was going to the doctor for, I'd go for like 2 years. I had this run where I'd go in for blood work, or I'd be like, what is happening? Because I was tired. I had no energy. Like my hair was really dry. It was just like all these things were showing up. I had a lot of joint pain and I'd go and they'd be like, no, everything's good. You're great. Everything's fine. And it was like, but it's not. So, again, and then for what happened with me after this like streak of where the dumpster fire hit and all these things kind of happened when my body for 2 years was already so exhausted and depleted because I wasn't giving it the rest. And then I ended up getting like a full blown autoimmune, challenge in my body, which turns out to be, it's been the best gift because it was exactly what I needed to stop me in my tracks and like literally stop because I couldn't. And, or I mean, I could, but it was like, I just had this energy that I didn't know what to do with. So it was when I ended up getting sick that I literally, it was like, I had no other choice. It was like, I had to rest to heal and then bringing in the breath and the softer practices. And then you know, what I think I see now too is just understanding like stress on the body, whether it's mental, emotional, physical. The body doesn't, it doesn't know the difference. It's like if we're stressing our bodies in one way or the other, eventually it's going to speak, right? And so I just look at that as, oh, my body spoke, and am so glad that I found this, this alternative holistic way to heal my body because now rarely do I have an autoimmune flare. If I start to feel symptoms, it's like oh, my body's speaking for a reason. There's something it's telling me. There's something I need to tune into here. And so that's where, I bring in now the practices that I've learned over the years, the somatic, especially the breath. And I know what to do in order to nurture and restore and essentially heal my nervous system, my body, to bring it back into balance. So,
Yes, I can definitely relate to all of that. I feel like we have very similar background stories as far
mm,
as everything you just mentioned, the going, the doing, the business,
mhm.
everything, the stress and the autoimmune diseases, and same. So everybody listening, like, we're examples that it can be holistically healed through process of all of these tools that we use. And I think there's so much hope out there. And like you said, there's the alternative of holistic healing, right? And
Mhm.
then, I have a sister who just goes to medical right away, medical, the quick fix all the way.
Mhm.
And it's very scary. It's very scary because that will all catch up to you. And
Yeah.
I think what's so cool that you mentioned is that there are modalities and there are practices and there are these options to help you in so many deeper ways.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the breath work for anybody
Mm.
who does not know what breath work is. Give
Mhm.
us the deets on that.
All right. Absolutely. So, oh my gosh, breath work. Wow. So a lot of different modalities, right? And I can speak to the one that that I've um, personally done the most work with, and then professionally I'm trained in. So I facilitate what's called conscious connected breathing. It is the lineage of rebirthing. I was trained again by Gwen Payne, who has her training is called Breath is Prayer. So basically, when we look at breathwork, the type of healing modality is, it's a somatic experience healing. So somatic is of the nervous system, right? It's of the body. So when we work with breath, essentially what we're working with is nervous system regulation. Um, and also somatics of getting in the body. So most of us, we're programmed and conditioned in our cultures and societies to disconnect to ourselves. Kind of like what you were even talking about when something's going on. It's like, oh, go to the doctor. What do I need? We go outside of ourselves to look for the answer, right? Or looking for that partner that's going to make us feel loved, or looking for the job that we think is going to bring us happiness. Well, when we are culturally conditioned in this way, we're so conditioned to be disconnected. And that's what I can really speak to in my experience, is like really all my life up until I really got into breath work, I feel like I was dissociated. I had all these survival mechanisms of how I coped with the experiences in my life that often brought me really far out of my body because I didn't know what to do with that energy. And so what breathwork helps us do is, number one, connection. So connection to yourself, connection to your body, um, connection to life force energy, because that's breath, right? And then when we also invite, like in the training I did, breath is prayer. Well, if we look at breath and life force energy, whatever one believes to be that guiding intelligence, whether that's God, goddess, Buddha, whatever it is people believe in, we invite that into the experience. So the breath takes you exactly where you need to go. And that's what's really cool about it, is once we feel, the life force energy gets flooded into the body, into the cells, when we look at the body, it's like it's energy. It's all energy. And so another part of this is, like, most of us have been conditioned to suppress energy, right? Of like thoughts and our feelings. And, we do this for cultural norms and standards. And then also just for, I could talk like a lot about this, but I'll keep it short. But, a lot of us, we just learn to close. We learn to hold things in. And that's all energy. So thoughts, emotions, feelings, all of it, if we're not letting it come up and out through our breath, through our voice, through some type of expression, through tears or whatever it is, speaking our truth, we're holding it in the body. So that energy goes somewhere, right? And so I can see that now of what happened for me and why I got what I got, because of, how I had been living my life. I held everything. I held it in my gut, and I stored it. And then finally it's like, if it's not coming up and out, like I said, it turns into something. So in my experience, again, what I can see is it was a matter of like And a lot of it was negative because I turned a lot of this on, oh, there's something wrong with me that I feel this way. I didn't know what to do with stuff. So literally it's like I don't know, it manifested, or I believe things manifest in our body through forms sometimes of, illness or dis-ease or imbalance or whatever that is. So what happens is the breath, when we use the breath in this powerful way, conscious connecting, breathing, flood the body, whatever is stuffed and stored in the body energetically has a chance to start to move if it's ready, right? So it can come out through the breath. And then also in the journeys are about 60 minutes, a little over 60 minutes. We use some, primal sounds and movement, because again, it's about releasing, right? Letting things out. So what I really loved about this in my own healing journey through breathwork was, you know, I never I never had early on, nor did I give myself later on in adulthood permission, permission to number one, feel stuff. It's part of our human experience, right? And not only feeling, because that's where a lot of us disassociate, we numb out, but then to express it openly and freely. So when I started doing breath work, it was like this unearthing and liberation and like permission to lean into like anger and rage and sadness and grief and, the things that can kind of get kicked up, I would say, in breath work. Again, it's those deeper levels, the somatics, in the body that's stored in the nervous system. And we all, I believe, experience trauma throughout our lives, whether it's subtle or extreme. And essentially that's trauma. It's all the things that it's not necessarily what happens out there, but it's what happens inside of us that doesn't come up and out. So it was like, honestly, I mean, those months in the beginning were just some of the most powerful. And I mean, it was like really confronting and just holy shit, like what is happening here? But it was the opening, right? Where it was like, oh, I started to find safety in my body. Like, oh, I can be with this because all this is energy. And this is part of the human journey to feel. And now instead of running away from it or distracting or numbing out from it, now I know how to meet it. Now I know how to express it. And once I know how to express it and move it along, I release it. And I'm not a prisoner to, this energy that often feels like maybe anxiety, depression, or like that kind of like, right? That you're just like, oh my God, I got to do something. I got to get away from this. That's how I felt for many years. So now it's like, okay, it's just an invitation. There's something that wants to speak here.
Yes. I think the breath is so powerful and so magical. And the other day, I would say the other day times a couple of years ago, I was outside and I was just listening to the wind, and I love the wind. A lot of people don't like the wind, but I really love the wind. And I was thinking to myself, like, what if this is Mama Earth's breath? What if this is Mama Earth's breath? And she's breathing in and out, and that's how powerful her breath is. And we get a little taste of that magic when it's just the wind is going through the air and it's circulating all through the passages of the mountains and the trees, and then coming from Wyoming to Sedona to Scottsdale, and it's just transferring through our bodies. And I just thought, here is Mama Earth just sharing her breath work with us. We get to take in the breath work. We get this magical power, this divine, gift from Mama Earth. And then, and then we get it, goes in and out, and then it goes out and transfers back into the collective breath of Mama Earth and gets shared with everybody else. And we're all sharing the breath of Mama Earth. And I was just like, wow, that's so powerful. And I think that gave me a lot more deeper meaning of the breath and how powerful it is. And, I am a big believer of breath work and the different terminologies of the breath work.
Yeah,
Throughout.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that you're doing that.
Oh, thank you. And I just have to, with what you were just saying there, what came to me was like, breath is life. It's like mother is life, right? And there it is. I love how you articulated that. That's so beautiful. And when we look at a lot of us, what happens when we going through our lives, when something happens stressful,
Mhm.
right? We cut off the life force. We hold our breath. We constrict it in some way, right? And so it's like remembering that, oh my God, the breath is life, bring it in, whether it's doing a breathwork ceremony or just in your daily life, like connecting to your breath, noticing how you're breathing. I would even just anybody listening, like, notice how you're breathing in this moment. And beyond that, like when you are in a conversation that's maybe activating something, notice what happens to your breath. I mean, this is the stuff that is just, it's transformational in how we breathe. How we breathe is how we live. And so I love what you brought in about that with, the breath of Mother Earth and the wind and all of that is just beautiful.
Yes. All right. I want to talk about your retreats. So, is there a retreat you're currently holding, you're doing, you just got done with, and how was the impact for all of your guests, all the goddesses who showed up?
Helen, oh my God. So there's going to be some like sparks coming out of me. Um, so I actually just finished a retreat a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. I got back from Oaxaca, leading for the first time after the pandemic, after that dumpster fire, right? And wow, it was something. So that one just happened. And what was so fun about that is, now I am bringing in the goddess yoga practice, which, like I said, it's the art of sacred and sensual movement. So it's starting in circle and, really creating that container of sisterhood where we're witnessing each other and really feeling and being seen. In our truth, whatever that looks like, being very authentic with ourselves. Uh, as well as that, we've incorporated cacao ceremony now. We've got rose ceremony. All the things that were part of it when I first started it, of the biking, the yoga. We have also got different types of yoga, vinyasa and some hatha and restorative from the bike and stuff like that. And then the other piece, the other piece besides the yoga and the biking is the cultural. So we do like the street art bike tour and of course the markets and all the things of Oaxaca that makes Oaxaca so special in their culture and art and food and music and all the things. But the other part to the trips that just has my heart like literally on fire is what I spoke to already, the bike project. In the pandemic, like I said, I had shut the trips down, but I was feeling like, oh my gosh, how do I keep this alive, this connection? And so I just went for it and partnered with some companies to really work on the project. Well, we call it's Project Bike Love La Chatao. And what that is, basically, it's I years ago when I was living in Oaxaca, I would go up to this little village that we had ventured to and through, and I taught English and yoga to the kids there. The very small community, but it's just literally it is this magical place, really like thick indigenous Zapotec culture and tradition. There's even a place above the village called Cerro del Jaguar, the Jaguar Hill, which is a spiritual sacred grounds where they do ceremonies and equinox ceremonies, all sorts of things. And the village, Letetao, actually means sacred heart. So it is a place that it's like one of my favorite places on this planet. It's just so beautiful. So one of the little boys, when I was leading trips years ago and teaching up there, he was always so fascinated with the bikes and he would talk to me about wanting to be a bike guide and things like that. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. There's a little picture on my Instagram. If people go there and see it, it's like he's the little boy we've got prayer hands together. And he was like 5 at the time. Anyways, when the pandemic hit, that's when I put the energy into, okay, let's look at what can we do to just give something back, really help bridge the gap between tourists and locals, create accessibility, equality, and also to empower the kids, whether they wanted to learn bike skills just for the joy of it and for transportation to get to school, or like little Uriel wanting to be a bike guide someday for some of these outfitters because Oaxaca is blowing up with ecotourism and mountain biking and things like that. So this all happened, which has been so cool. We launched in January and brought down 16 mountain bikes, and it was like seriously, it brings me to tears when I think about that day. But now my trips also incorporate a part where we go to the village, we ride with the kids, we connect with them, share the smiles, the joy of biking. And so we do that in the trips now. And then also I donate a percentage of the profit to the Project Bike Love to keep fueling that fire. So we're able to launch a mountain bike program for the kiddos starting this week, actually, from that last retreat, which is really fun. So I guess, yeah, that one just happened, and that's been kind of the new, like, I don't know, just this new fruition of the tours and the trips. And moving forward, I'll have another trip next October, the annual one. We've got a co-ed one coming up in March with some of my partners, Two Wheel Epics and Coyote Adventures. That one is definitely more enduro focused, kind of that more like chargy energy, but that is going to be helping to launch we're expanding now into another village, a neighboring community where there are 80 kids interested in getting bikes. So all of a sudden it's just like, it's kind of blowing up, which is really cool. And it's just, it's one of those things that feels overwhelming sometimes, but I keep just going, no, you got this. Like, you didn't know how this was going to happen in Lachitao, and look at what's happening, and just trust it, keep feeling into that fire in my heart around this. And just, I know there's going to be a way. So that's what we've got kind of up on the horizon.
I love that you're trusting the process and you're being a light to show everybody else that this is what you're doing, and you're also helping the community that you're working in, and that shows a big compassion on your part. And I think when I talk to people who are leading retreats or talk to any leadership role of some sort, I love hearing that you're doing you, but you're also giving back. So there's like this flow of energy going through you out to the world and then circulating back, like full circle. And I just got to commend you on that. I think it's really beautiful. And I could tell you love your work a lot.
Oh, thank you so much, Helen. Thank you. It honestly, like this piece, I feel like kind of brought me back to life with the community and the connection and the giving back. I was laughing. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was like, I just said, I thought about that quote of like, I can't even remember what exactly it is, but it's basically like, just do what you love, and, the money will sort itself out. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, this might not be like, this isn't my moneymaker, but it's not about the money. It's like there's other currency of wealth that I believe in, right? And it's like the energetic flow that you were talking about. And, because I don't know, this last retreat that I led, I had smaller numbers, but I was like, you know what? What's more important to me is stepping up. It's like doing this again, because honestly, it was scary. After all the changes that I had, I was kind of like, do I want to do this? What does this look like now? But I thought, you know what? Instead of sitting around worrying about it, I'm just going to allow myself to step into it, try it back on,
Mhm.
and really the intention was to be able to fuel these fires and get the bike program for the kids and see them and connect with them. And I just thought, I mean, I don't know, personally, like when I've read about leaders and people in business, it's like, you don't go from 0 to 100 where like, I mean, maybe some people do, right? Where it happens really fast. And that's beautiful. But I think for me, what I'm starting to understand about this journey in business for me is so much more than, it's so much more than like, it's so much more than money. It's about who I'm becoming. It's about connecting with my passions
Mhm.
and holding the belief that, sure, that other piece might come of like this turning into the main source of my income. And if not, that's okay. Like kind of letting go of that outcome and just doing it for what I believe in wholeheartedly. And really that's about building connections. It's building connections to self, to others, to the world, the culture, and like I feel like truly after the pandemic, I think that's what so many of us need right now is, we've gone through such a tumultuous time that I think in some ways has caused this separation, in some ways, or like isolation. And so for me, it's like life-giving to be able to do this and work with these kids and communities. And I think it just taps into my love for, like I said, I used to teach, and I just feel like, life is like school, and we get to show up in different ways and teach different lessons. And like I said, I guess my big one that I've really tapped into is just my love for building those connections. So
Sure. You could tell you're rich in connection.
yeah, exactly.
You're rich
Yeah.
in connection. And that other half, it is coming. It is coming. That, when you're abundant and you're prosperous in connection, the money's not separate from it. It is there
Mm,
already. So I
yeah, I
see it
love that.
coming your way.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you.
so I'm so thankful you came on. I could feel the passion. I love the fire that you're exuding from within out to me through this Ethernet here. I just want to ask, is there anything you want the audience to know about any of your events coming up or anything going on with you?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I guess the one thing that I would be able to share is that I do have, so monthly I'm offering some workshops in different places throughout the Southwest. They're called Unleash Yourself Workshop Experience. So it's a combination of goddess yoga and the somatic conscious breathwork. So those are usually I post on, my Facebook, my Instagram at Women's Radical Pursuits. In addition to those, I also do private sessions online. So I have, the somatic breathwork, and then I also have a session that is called Explore and Ignite Your Passions and Purpose. That one goes really nicely with breathwork as well, because it's all about connection, but it's the conscious connection about what is passion to me and how do I align with this in my daily life. And then we open it up through the breathwork. So those are two offerings that I offer both in person and online. Aside from that, I think I already spoke to the retreats that we have on the horizon. And oh yeah, if people want to get involved also with the bike project, there's different ways with that as well. A lot of that's on Instagram and Facebook as well, but we do have a direct link if people want to donate, or if people want to volunteer or join us for a trip is another way that we give back through, like I said, those percentages that we donate to the project. So yeah, those are the big ones that I have, I guess, where people can connect and work with us, or me, us. Yeah.
Yes, Goddess Amy. I think that's awesome. Everybody, we'll put her link in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on. I think that it was really powerful, just sharing your own journey, especially through the pandemic, and not just for women who may need your work or to work with you or attend your events, but other leaders out there, other women, other wild women out there, other goddesses and queens, our sisters out there who are in the same line of work as us. I think you've given quite the light to show that if it's still lit, ours can be lit too. We're in this together. We're not separate from each
Yes.
other. So thank you
Love that.
so much, Amy, for coming on. I really appreciate your
Mm.
time.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much, Helen. This has been so fun. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Subscribe, share, and share with your friends. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Till next time, adios.
Want to hear more?
Visit us at SexyFreedomMedia.com.